I don't care because I got no hair. Sorry.
What the hell? That's a bit out of order. Jesus.
Wrong. It wasn't personal.
On camera, people, by the way. Just
We're
to be
off
clear.
camera. That's okay. So let's start. Okay. I'm definitely editing this. You are not going. You would keep all that in.
I would.
You would. All right. Okay. Here we go. Hello, listeners. Welcome to this week's episode of your Naked Coach Collective podcast. You've got me and Ian today, and we are talking about intentional design. Right. Is it a term that you've heard bandied about, Ian, or something fairly new?
Not really.
Not really.
I think possibly the first time I've heard it is when you mentioned it about 5 minutes ago. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So the thing is that the concepts within it are probably not going to be new to you. And it's just a term that I thought it would be quite interesting to explore today.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So intentional design is about living according to living in your environment according to the things that you choose. For example, there might be habits, there might be procedures in place that you actually have no choice over, that you are just doing, or you may have choice over, sorry, let me rephrase that. You may have choice over, but you're just doing automatically. You know, you automatically wake up in the morning and you do things. You brush your teeth, presumably. You might not have thought about it.
Presumably. Yes, just for clarity, I do brush my teeth.
Presumably. So, but the thing is, it's a convention, right? You wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth. It's a convention. Obviously, it's good for you and whatever. But the thought behind it, you've never really thought about it, potentially. So intentional design in such a small detail here might be something like, well, you decide which brush you use, you decide on your toothpaste, you decide on how long you do it for, and that is a very basic example just to give you an idea of what it means to have intentional designs in your life.
Okay. Could you maybe give another example?
Yeah, for example, like if you might be in a family unit, say, and the consensus within that family is that you always do Christmas in a certain way. I'm just thinking on the top of my head, right? So everybody in the family does Christmas in a certain way, and you've just gone along with it for so many years. But the truth is, you really just wanted to, if you really sat down and thought about your values, which are, you might have a value that says, well, giving, donation, philanthropy, something, and you really would like to spend Christmas Day giving meals to homeless people or something like that, but you've never done that because you've just assumed that your family environment and culture is that you all get together on Christmas Day and do Christmas together. So does that example help a little bit? So when you start intentional design, you start thinking about, well, what aligns with my core value of philanthropy, of whatever, right? So, and then it's not as if you just stop doing everything with your family and you make that decision. Then you have more of an informed base to start making a choice about whether you want to disrupt what happens with your family or to do that, or if you want to incorporate it in some other kind of way. So it's not all about upsetting your life. It's about...
So, so I've gone through my whole life having turkey for Christmas dinner when I actually now have gammon because I prefer gammon.
So at some point you made a choice.
Sexy honey roast mustard gammon for Christmas dinner.
Oh, you made that choice,
That's
right?
my intentional design for Christmas. Give me some gammon instead of dry turkey.
Something like that. Okay. All right, listeners, something like
that. Maybe a bit more deeper than that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, just a little bit more deep. Just a little bit more deeper. But no, we are joking. But the truth is, you made it intentional means it's just something that you think about, right? A
Yeah.
lot of
Okay.
the processes you do in your daily life and in your wider life just happen by automaton. And
Yeah.
your choice to have gammon came in at some point when you thought, "Oh, I'm sick of this now. I really want something else, and I'm gonna make it." You made an intention, and you made an intentional decision, and went for it. So, yeah, it's a very valid
Yeah.
reason. It's a very valid
Yeah.
example.
We
But
did we did ease the transition where we had gammon and turkey, but then I started getting told off for having two different meats. Should only have one, Ian.
uh, and are you cooking?
Yeah, and the cook as well.
Alright, well, if you're cooking, I think cook decides. I'm always the cook, so it's cook decides, right?
Privileges of the chef.
Yeah. So, you start thinking about your life and things that stress you out, and you might ask yourself the question, "Well, how do I cope with this?" Right? Some point you've been faced with a situation and you're asking yourself, "How do I cope with this?" And when you start thinking about it intentionally, you can ask questions like, "How can I design this situation to support me? How can I design something to implement to help me?" So it's a
Yeah.
very thoughtful, deep process, which means that you are, and a lot of it, and I would like to come back to this later, is a lot of it's about control. A lot of it is about having choice and agency. So, especially when we come onto topics like what happens at work, I mean, professionals, everybody, right? When you go to work, you are bound by somebody else's rules, right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna kind of maybe give an example, because as you were talking, and I was thinking, how has that applied to me previously before I kind of got into coaching to try and make it a bit more relatable for people.
Mm.
Um, as a project manager, there was so many things in my professional life where we're doing stuff for clients that they're paying a lot of money for, and there'd be issues which then cause delays, which means schedules have slipped, um, and you're potentially going to impact on the schedule, the scope, or the quality and the time as well. So, and how much money might need to be spent by the customer. So budgets might be impacted depending on things that happen. And those conversations can be so difficult sometimes, especially if you've not got a great relationship to start with. And I know when I was first starting out, I was quite poor at building the relationships with the clients. And so I made it my intention to be better at building those relationships from the very start, which then helped when we did have issues, when things did start to um, kind of go wrong. The client was there to, rather than point the finger and say, well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, why haven't you done this, why haven't you done that? It's like, well, how can we work together to get this issue resolved? And so that kind of then impacted my stress levels. So it then kind of brought the stress levels down because I knew I was better at having those conversations, because I was better at building the relationships, which then impacted how we work together as client and supplier. Um, so yeah,
Mm.
that's an example of how maybe I've used that intentional design without knowing I've used it in my professional life, which was to understand how I can better build those relationships to then help with the projects as they progress. Once it got to those difficult moments, because I knew once we had those relationships in place, they're less likely to point the finger of blame and more likely to want to just work with you to get the issue resolved as quickly as possible with the least amount of cost and whatever else is involved.
I love that because it shows you already had that kind of thinking pattern going on in your head. And you did what a lot of people would not do is that you reflected on situations that hadn't gone quite well. So if you're in a situation, if you're in a work employment place where you're employed to do a job, often it's not a position where you reflect on things that have gone wrong in the past. But you did that and you made a personal change within a role, which is hard to do because I know a lot of companies and businesses don't really encourage that kind of thinking. And you made changes that helped you, which is great. Sorry, go.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of job role as well. Part
Mm,
of it. So part of being a project manager is always learning lessons. So you literally at the end of every project you have a lessons learned review, and you go through what went wrong, what went right, how can we improve things moving forward.
yeah,
But it is mainly that kind of thing is mainly um, uh, targeted towards, well, an engineer didn't do this, so next time we need to make sure we do this to make sure that they do that, or certain prerequisites weren't sent, so we need to make sure we're capturing those that need to be sent earlier in the sequence of tasks that need to be completed. But then I started realizing that relationship side of things and maybe softer skill type things were not being picked up as part of these lessons learned, and so it was with one particular customer actually who I started to introduce that into in terms of what kind of soft things like the relationship haven't we done now that we can do moving forward. So I suppose it's part of the role and part of me as well bringing it into a framework that was already there to help that kind of thinking.
yeah.
So probably a bit of a mix and probably part role, part me bringing it into there as well, because it wasn't really something that was done as part of the template lessons learned review at the end of a project that year.
No, I mean, don't do yourself down. I think that's definitely a way of looking at it. However, your your input was quite important there, because assuming that that was going on within your company before you arrived, and that attitude, not that um, process of evaluating everything and every little part of what had happened within each of the stages of the contract, right? So you have a natural, innate thought process, mindset, ability to think outside of what's immediately in front of you, but many people do not. You know, many people do not. And the
Mm,
idea of thinking about, well, hold on, if I build a relationship today with these people, within in 3 months' time, when we're reaching the end of the project and things are going tits up, you know, this relationship will help that situation. I mean, who thinks like that? Not everybody. So well done, you. Pat on the back
no,
for
thank you.
you. So, so going back to, you know, some of the principles of intentional design, and you've picked up on these already. You know, I'm just going to go through it quickly because I want to go on to saving people time. And the major part of this podcast episode is how to save you some time, you as a listener, you and me and all of us. Okay, so we just always need to bear in mind when you're thinking intentionally, what is this for? So whatever you do, what is it for? So when you had your moment of thinking, okay, I need to build a relationship with these people because it will make communication easier in the future, right? That is a clarity. You had a clarity of purpose, you knew what you wanted, and then you took action.
Hmm.
And so you went against the default. So another point to think about is that you always have a choice. You might not always seem like a choice, but there's always a choice. You know, you can be starving hungry and there's a plate of food there, but you still have a choice of whether you eat it or not.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, and being intentional is sort of recognizing that with everything that you do. So if you think about your day yesterday and think about potentially there were some things that made you unhappy, anything that made you unhappy yesterday, lean, look back into how that event happened. Maybe not yesterday, whenever it was, right? Think back to how that event started. Where was the beginning of that starting to go wrong? And how much of that was your choice, was your intention? And then you start learning from that. And then you think, okay, next time you recognize a little bit earlier that, hold on, these things are happening and they're not actually my choice. And you start putting in more of your own impact and your own thought processes. You stop living quite much, you stop living by default, wake up, brush your teeth. You start living more like, wake up, oh, fancy a minty toothpaste today, or I fancy, I mean, I am being a bit frivolous, but you start thinking about every choice you make. I've got a glass of water here, right? Really, maybe I wanted my peach tea. I don't know. I didn't bother to get it, right? So little things and big things, everything is in this. Now, it's also about adaptation. So I'm going to ask you to go back to your experience, your example that you gave us.
Hmm.
Maybe the first time you thought, oh, I need to build a relationship here, you went about it the wrong way. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But every time you do something that stems from a intentional decision that you've made, I think automatically, but if not automatically, definitely something to consciously think about is, did it work? Did it make you feel better?
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah. So, like I was saying, it's kind of the stress levels just started to ease on every project that I did from then.
Brilliant.
Um, but kind of another example would be, um, again from my own experience. When I got back from traveling, I'd basically, because I ran out of money, I came home, ended up on my mum's sofa. Oh God, bless her, but Jesus. Um, Thank you, mum, if you do actually still listen. I don't think she does. I think she's over it now. I think she's over it now. But it was a case of I took the first job that came along, which was at the place where I worked as a PM. But I started out at the very, very bottom of the ladder, um, in trying loads of different things within the business, and I think because it was quite a young business as well, um, they had the ability to let me do that. So I went and worked with the engineers for a couple of days. I went into the service desk, looking at how they take tickets in for any issues and that kind of thing, and then I went and worked in the marketing for a couple of days just to see how that was, and tried loads of different things, and was helping with contracts and mini little projects and all this kind of thing. And my intention there was I don't want to be just another um, employee that gets to, I don't know, they start and then they get stuck in this role and they don't level up from there. And so my intention then, after I'd been there probably about 2 years, I started helping out in the project coordination side of things a bit more, and really kind of liked it because it was really challenging. And every day was different. I mean, you're doing the same kind of things, but you're having constantly different conversations with different people. So it was really, really good from that perspective. And so my intention then was, right, okay, so I'm going to be a project manager,
Yeah.
whether it's here or somewhere else. I will be a project manager. So I then started going into the office earlier, like 6:30, and I'd be there with my Prince 2 book and PMQ, APMQ book, learning the qualifications. And it just so happened that one of the directors who worked there as well would come in early before everybody else as well. So he was always there at like 7, which I found out I didn't know at the time. I just wanted the kind of quiet space to be able to study. And he just came in and noticed that what I was doing. And he never said anything to me, but he kind of took that back internally and was like, you need to kind of take notice of this. And so I feel like I kind of forced their hand into giving me a role as a PM rather than them going out and hiring somebody else as a PM. So my intention was, I'm going to be a PM here or somewhere else. And I went in, studied, someone noticed it. I would have eventually had that conversation with them to say that, look, I've done this in the background. And it turned out that they then paid for me to go get the qualification. And it's not cheap. It's like a couple of grand to go on like a 5-day course and get the qualification as well. So, yeah, my intention then was, yeah, I'm doing this and you're going to give me the job or I'll go elsewhere and get one. It's as kind of simple as that. Um, but I did have the choice to just take a normal
Mm,
job where I was at the kind of level I was, well, maybe a little higher than the level was because I was on like 12 and a half, 13 grand a year when I first started there. And so, and yeah, now I've, quadruple the wage and what have you, because you're intentionally taking that next step and putting the effort in to get to that higher level.
that makes me think about something I hadn't actually considered about this was it gives you that thought and the action. Number one, you can have the thought, but you still need to take the action, right? And then the
Hmm.
action that you took gave you power. Thinking, I'm going to be a PM here or somewhere else. That gave you power because you were no longer
Hmm.
thinking, well, hold on, this is my only option. So even though you didn't know what that other option what might have been, you 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 empowered yourself by being more aware of your thoughts and making decisions like that. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Yay. All right. All right. Okay. So I'd like to move on to saving you some time now.
Mm.
Okay. I don't have enough time. Hands up if you have said that at some point. Hands up. Yeah. Now, what if I told you that potentially this could be a little bit of a myth? Oh,
I agree. So you know my thoughts on this. I agree with you. But for the listeners, yeah, it's like
okay.
everyone's got the same amount of time in the day. Look at what other people can do.
Well, that's not where I'm going with this, but that is something that
All
we.
right, okay.
That's not where I'm going with this. Okay, so Ian, have a think about a time in in your experience, recent or way past. It's really fine. About a time when you were too busy to do something, or you felt like you didn't
Hmm.
have time to do something that you wanted to do.
Yep.
Share if you're willing to share.
Oh, I thought there was going to be like a follow on for me to. No, okay.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes back to, obviously, I say this all the time, but that kind of coaching conversation we had, when we had that conversation, I was in a place where I was working all day,
Mm,
every day, weekends, into the evenings. I mean, there'd be times where I'd be closing the laptop down at 11 o'clock and then logging back on um, 6, 7 in the morning and kind of going through it all again, like every day. So I was of the opinion that I just haven't got time to do anything other than work, eat, and sleep.
mm.
So that's my example of that. Yeah.
I remember that really well because that was a real turning point for you and a real eye opener to the power of coaching for me because it's a really great example. You were really, really busy. We talked about it and you realized, I mean, there are lots of elements to that conversation, but you realized essentially that you had a choice. So up until that point, you didn't really acknowledge that you had any kind of choice. You were working all hours because you wanted to do a damn good job and this was the way to do it. And then when we,
Hmm.
when we thrashed it and talked about it a little bit, but essentially what happened there in that point was that you decided to make changes. You had
Yeah.
intentional design. You made an intentional decision to make changes. Is that right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, sometimes it's not always easy. When you're in a position, you're at work, you're working all the hours and you think that you are doing a grand job. And if you were to cut back on something, it would then not be a grand job. It might not be an easy decision to make. So what was it about that decision making process that got you over that potential hump?
Well, I don't know whether this is just the way I am.
Mm,
My experience on this might be a bit different to other people, and they may handle this in a different way. But as soon as we had that conversation, for me, it was like a light switch. So it's like, right, I'm making these changes, whether
mm,
people like it or not. I don't care. It's like I have to make these changes because I don't want to carry on in the situation where I am now. And that situation was I'd be closing the laptop down at the end of the day, and I'd just have a physical buzzing fog of noise in my head,
mm,
and I just want to sit in complete silence and not talk to anyone. Um, and I didn't want that to carry on. So I yeah, I made changes, and people did not like it at work. It's like, well, Ian's always done this kind of thing for me. Why is he not helping now? And the kind of thing we're talking about here is stuff that wasn't really anything to do with my job, but I was just helping people because I like to try and um, bring up the team. Um, and it was just a case of, sorry, no, you're going to have to find someone else to do it. I haven't got time. And I'd point them in a direction of where they can go to get that kind of, I wasn't a tosser about it. I'd still help them enough to get what they needed.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of those conversations with other people for them to realize that, no, I'm not just going to go out my way to um, do things for them that they probably could have done as well themselves, but they thought, oh, Ian could do that. Ian will do that for me. It's all right. We'll give it Ian. So you know the old adage: give a busy person something to do, and they'll get it done for you. It was kind of like that. Um, but
How
I kind of like just put my foot down, and now that doesn't happen. People come to me when they really need something, and so I know that now, like, right, okay, they actually really need help now,
Mm.
rather than just because I'd sit there and be like, you could have just done this yourself, and then I'd go and do it anyway. But as soon as we had that conversation, I'd made those changes, and then just that in itself saved me so much time, and I was able to do things that I was doing out of hours during the day. Um, and so, and I also had to learn the art of delegation.
Oh, good one.
So I was such a kind of control freak in terms of all the work I was doing. Not a control freak in terms of making sure every little thing was spot on down to spelling and all that. Not nothing like that. It was more a case of I don't want them to do it because I want to know it's done right. I want to make sure the job gets done, so I'm going to do it. And I wasn't trusting other people, which was a disservice to these other people as well because they were more than capable of doing the job.
Yeah,
Um,
love that.
and so it took me a while. That took me a while to get my head around. So first it was the saying no to everybody, which was easy because I do like awkward conversations sometimes with people. But the part I did struggle with was letting go of things for other people to do that I'd been doing myself. And again, then that saved me so much time and
So much time.
doing stuff out of hours to do stuff in hours. And they were the people I was given this work to do. I should have been doing anyway. It's not that I was doing what other people were doing to me, going, "Oh, can you just do this?" It was a case of, "No, this is your job. You need to go do this for me for this to happen."
Mm.
Um, so it was, and there's people that were thanking me for giving them the work to do rather than hogging it because they wanted to, because of my story within the business as well of starting at the very bottom and on like 12, 13 grand a year and then working my way up to where I got to. They wanted to learn from me along that journey. And then that's how I really started to help with the mentoring more than I was anyway, because I enjoyed the mentoring side of it in terms of showing them how to do the job. But then it was showing them how to grow in the role and all that kind of stuff, which then made me feel better about myself as well. So it was multiple little things and multiple impacts that it had.
Multiple wins. I love that. If you had not made those changes, you could, God knows where you'd be now. But you said something that was quite important, I think, for a lot of people was that, you said things to people that you didn't mind. You said, no, I haven't got time. But a lot of people don't have that strength or don't have that ability to say, I don't have time. But where we can bring in the more deeper thinking in that as well, if there are things and conversations that you need to have that are difficult, that initially that you think, oh my God, that's really going to upset this person if I say these things because I want to change my working situation in some way or tweak it, where you can use your intentional design skills that you develop is that you can talk through a thought to its conclusion before you go about implementing it. Now, for you, it was easy, right? But for me, it would be more difficult.
Yeah. So the thing I'd say about this is it's difficult for people, and I'm assuming here, This is me putting an assumption on it. So in my eyes, it's difficult for people because they don't want to have confrontation and they don't want to have those awkward conversations. Whereas I quite like those awkward conversations.
Yeah,
They
that's
make me
because you're
chuckle.
cool.
Um, but but I went into those conversations still giving them something. It
Yes.
wasn't just a complete cut off. So it was a case of, no, I can't do that. But if you do this, you'll be able to get it anyway. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a case of I was turning on being a tosser going, I'm not
No.
doing that for you. Because I
Mm,
think that's what some people assume I would have done. It was a case of, no, I just can't, I've not got the time to do that for you. But if you do this, you'll be able to get the information. Or if you do this, this
that's
person will be
different.
able to do it for you.
Absolutely.
So I'm still giving it. So that helps that conversation. If you're still able to give them something,
Mm.
then it doesn't. Because a lot of people would. I mean, and there's certain people that still got the backup, which then led to the awkward conversations, which, you know, like I say, I quite enjoy. So it was funny watching them get shut down. Uh,
I
but in the
watched.
first instance, like 95% of people are just like, all right, okay, thanks. Didn't know that. Cheers. And then they go off and do it.
Brilliant. I love it. I want to move on to a concept now of pressure.
Hmm.
So I say the word pressure, or you think of the word pressure, and you're generally thinking it's a bad thing. Pressure is toxic. Pressure is bad for you. Raises your blood pressure. But there is such a thing, if you think about it, as good pressure. Things that you intentionally design to put pressure on you. You know, if you intentionally design to be intentionally think you're going to be creative, for example, you might be putting a pressure on yourself to create a piece of artwork or to create a story or to create something. But that is not a what could be termed as a toxic pressure. This is a good pressure, a valuable pressure. So what are your thoughts about pressure?
Yeah. So I never really thought about it until I heard. And so this is a sports thing now. So I obviously follow
Yeah.
football and Manchester United. And Roy Keane, who's one of the most is- greatest players ever, and United's greatest captain. Um, he used to say it's an absolute privilege, the pressure of playing for Manchester United. It's an absolute privilege, and I've took that initially. I never really thought about it, but then it's just kind of, I don't know. It's just been subconsciously in the back of my mind, I think, because now I kind of view pressure as a privilege. So, what privileged position I am in to be working on something that means so much that there's pressure involved.
Love that. It's
That's
great.
how I look at it now. Mm.
Yeah, it's
What a
beautiful.
privileged position I'm in to be able to work on something that means so much that there's actual pressure involved.
Brilliant. Love that.
That's my whole view on it. I don't really have any other kind of view on it. That's literally it.
Yeah. And talking to you, I realized that all of the coaching things that I do and the related stuff, it does provide me with does put some pressure on, especially time pressure. But that attitude of, well, actually, this is the pressure that makes me work better, and
Yep.
analyzing why it's important to have that sort of pressure, because you might want to achieve something, but if you didn't put that on yourself, you might achieve it in 3 years' time. So where 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 I want to go with that is that it's okay to feel pressure, basically, as long as you have designed it for yourself. And if you're in a
Mm.
situation like, say, for example, a teacher, you have to be at work at a certain time. You have to give classes at a certain time. You must have the reports done in time. You must be ready for Ofsted, all of that sort of stuff. So you need to start looking into your day and saying, well, where can I make some intentional decisions? You might
Yep.
have half an hour in your lunch break where you sit in the corner of the staff room and scroll social media or in something. But even that has become a habit and a prescribed action rather than a choice. We all pick up our phone and look at whatever we look at, Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and think that we're making a choice. But I'm asking now, if you're listening to this, when you last looked at your phone, was it your choice? Was it by design? Did you really? Because I know I play a couple of games online, and I was really just I'm sitting there playing, and 5 minutes has gone and 10 minutes have gone. Well, what could I have done that's more productive in 10 minutes? And that draw is that I've got a game that I have deleted off my phone about 3 times and then put it back on.
It's difficult with the phones, isn't it? Because they're literally designed. All the apps and everything are designed to keep you on.
They really,
So
really are, right?
it's hard. It does create bad habits
It
in,
does.
um, sit down, put TV on, and then get the phone out. So you got the TV on, and then you've got your phone in your hand scrolling through stuff as well. Yeah,
I'm not saying don't do it. Right, and I'm not saying to myself, I'm actually
yeah,
sort of myself, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying do it because I want to do it. Do it because I've planned to do it. I've designed my life so that I can incorporate that 10, 15 minutes to do that and be happy and enjoy it. So I think that's another thing. When you make a decision by intention, you enjoy it more.
yeah. And so on the phone thing. So when I was having that fog and noise in the head and everything, I just watched it in silence. I would literally play the most mind numbing game on my phone because it would just help the head quiet. It wouldn't get rid of everything. It just helped the head get quiet.
Mm.
And it was just so mind numbing, boring. I can't even remember what the game is because I've not played it in so long now. Ever since pretty much our conversation, I've
Yeah.
not really played it because I've not needed to because it was there just to literally quieten the noise.
So these games and these sorts of things, they do play on on our human condition, which is status quo, which is
Mm,
immediate gratification, which is do the things that make you happy, without without the immediate fallout, right? So the immediate fallout of me playing my game for 15 minutes a day is that in a week I've lost 2 hours, right? So
yeah. And one final thing I'll say on this as well is there's so many good things out there now as well that people are putting out in terms of content. So like this,
yes,
obviously, this is great content for people,
yeah,
but then they won't take action on it. So they'll sit in this cycle of thinking that they're improving and growing as a person because they're listening to all these self-help podcasts and all that kind of stuff, or following these, I don't know, gurus online or whatever that
yeah.
are putting out some great content to try and help people. But then the people are getting to a scrolling state or a mind-numbing scrolling state of just consuming the content but doing nothing about it as well. So there's the positive and the negative of that as well. So I know I was like that. No, I was like that as well. So yeah.
We all are, right? We all are. Making changes is not an easy thing. Making small changes is making small changes and maintaining them for a little while, and then making another small change is an easier way of making a big change. However, when I say easier, I don't mean it's easy, right? It's not. It's simple. The thought of breaking down a change you want to make in your life, um, the idea of doing it is simple, but the actuality is not easy. And so
Mm,
we do need, I mean, for me, thinking about how I do things and thinking about what I want it to give me, thinking about does it align with my core value? Does it make me feel good? Does it make the things that are important to me work? Right. Thinking about all of that has really helped me to make changes. So if and we go back to that my why, and everything goes back to your reason why. It goes back to your core values, and even this, because we're living. Okay, a challenge for all our listeners. Think about your day yesterday or pick a day, go through it, relive it. How much of it was your choice? How much of it was something that you had to do? You had to go to work at at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever. You had to be there in that time. But all the options that you had to make a choice during that time, did you take them? And how would you feel differently if you had?
yeah. And I'll give an action for people as well because I know we need to wrap up now.
Yep.
But my action would be have a think about the life you would love to live and take an intentional action towards that, no matter how small it is.
Mm.
Take an intentional step in that direction.
Every day.
That's it.
Every day.
Yeah.
I'm adding the every day, you're saying one day, but I think if you're gonna take a tiny little step towards your goal, right, do a tiny little step every day.
Nice.
Oh, Ian, thank you. I really enjoyed that conversation. Right, let's wrap this up. I hope you've enjoyed listening today. Until next time, be there.
Be there
Oh, hang on, I'm gonna stop
and
that for a second.
be.
No, I forgot to say, guys, if you're listening to this, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends.
Oh,
We have a huge back catalogue now, 80 something episodes of really interesting conversations. Choose something that is interesting to you, send it as a gift to a friend who might need to hear what's in that episode. And subscribe and lots of love, everyone. Until next time, be there.
be there and be naked.